Hello, and welcome to another episode of The Kindness Habit. When you leave today, you are going to get ideas about how you can connect with people in a realistic way, and you start to do things daily that is going to have an impact. My guest today is someone that I've known for over 15 years. We have worked together in a mastermind as well as through the National Speakers Association. I have so much respect for him as far as how he really lives relationship building. Please help me welcome Patrick Galvin.
Allison, always a blast to talk with you.
Well, Patrick, I'm so excited to have you. I've had you on my show before for some of your other books that you have written. Your whole theme in life is truly to build relationships and show how that impacts businesses. And I was so thrilled to be able to get an early copy of your book, The Daily Connector. And those of you who know me, you know that I love quotes and I love challenges. And if you're like me, you're going to love this book. So I'll let you tell them in a moment how you actually wrote this and why. But I'm going to tell the listeners right now. And if you're not watching the video, I am showing right now that an example of the page, how it has a quote, talks about it, and then an action. And I, of course, loved the one in October that talks about gratitude. And then the action step says, each day, challenge yourself to notice and appreciate one small thing that someone else does for you, which I love. So, Patrick, I'm so excited to hear why you and your wife, Ellen, decided to write this book, because this is something that, of course, I love because, again, it's daily, it's quotes, and it impacts people. So tell the listeners, why'd you write this?
Relationships are everything. 3 words. There you go. Let me elaborate a little bit. So, in our lives, our personal and professional lives, we have found that relationships really are the key to our success. And this is backed up with lots of research showing that, at the end of the day, it doesn't matter how much money you make or the titles you acquire in your life, you're going to live a longer, healthier, happier life when you have solid relationships. And the first couple of books that I wrote were parables about relationship building, the connector's way and the trusted way. And they're stories, and embedded in those stories are ideas. You've got to dig a little bit to find those ideas. And I decided, hey, we've got to be a little bit more obvious about this. And I've got many more ideas than I can put into a parable. So The Daily Connector is a book that you could kill a small animal with. It's much thicker than the other books.
It is. It's very heavy.
And if there's any PETA people, I'm not advising anyone do that. It's to be read and absorbed, but it's a daily reader. So the idea is every day there's a different aspect of relationship building that we're discussing, sharing an idea, a strategy, and a very specific action step, something to think about, something to do. Because relationship building is first a mindset. You've got to think, hey, this is important. And then it's a skill set, but we don't learn these skills in school. Sometimes our parents teach us, sometimes they don't. So we felt like there's a need for a book that addresses, how do you improve your relationship building skill set?
Oh my gosh, yes. So with your business, would you say it has been built based on relationships that you've made? I mean, just as an entrepreneur. Yeah.
Absolutely. So we've been in business 22 years, and I think about all of the business we've done. And when I keep asking, like, why did we do business with this person? Why did we do business with that other person? And we keep doing the 5 whys, it comes back to about 5 people. 90% of our business comes back to about 5 people over 22 years. And it sounds remarkable, but when I talk to other folks, it's a pretty pedestrian story. It's not remarkable at all. So much success that people have in their own businesses, in their own careers. Go back to a couple of influencers, to use a term that's very much au courant now, but in kind of a different way. Some influencers who really help propel that person forward. And it's the power of the relationship that got that client or that influencer to say, hey, this is somebody worth doing business with, worth promoting, what have you.
Oh my gosh, yes. And I can totally relate to that. I have one person who has influenced my business, like goes back to one person. And then he introduced me to another person. Like, it truly is relationships. And it's interesting in a lot of businesses, especially our business of professional speaking, some people are all worried about, like, what marketing should we do? And just these big campaigns. And so you have always challenged all of us at, like, how could you really stop and put more time into building that relationship? So it really does make people successful And there's also research where you tell the listeners about how it affects our life. There's so much loneliness out there, but not only the bottom line of your own company is going to grow with relationships, but what can it do for our own selves? Like, why would you encourage people to not only read your book, but also be mindful of making these connections?
Well, it's so important, not just for your lifespan, but for your health span. So the
Mhm.
Surgeon General wrote a report, and he determined that America has an epidemic of loneliness and disconnection. And it really is pretty dire, like suicide, alcoholism, depression, all these terrible things tie back to this disconnection. So if it's a public health crisis, why aren't we all taking that to heart and really working on it? And the good news is it's not complicated. Like in your book, it's personal. You talk about how personalization is huge in relationships. It's these little things that we can do that are so important to relationship building. So it is so worth our time on an individual level, just for our own health and happiness. And the business thing also comes. So it's really kind of this remarkable activity, relationship building, and one of the very few that I can think of that is enriching us both personally and professionally. So it's very much well worth our time to really
Mhm.
focus on it.
Oh my gosh, yes. So what would you say? Because I have a lot of introverted clients who might not be as comfortable reaching out, to people and making these connections. And yet what you just said is that it's backed by research that we need to connect with other people. So how would introverts relate to your book? And what advice would you give those people who are like, I don't want to make more connections with
Well,
people?
here's the thing. Introverts have a superpower.
Oh,
Yeah,
does it?
it's true. So they listen more. They're more thoughtful in conversation. They're asking questions. They're figuring out who is this person I'm talking to. Some of it might be self-defense. Maybe they don't want to talk as much. And I know a lot of introverts that are great question askers because it allows them to talk less, but they tend to listen more. And by listening more, they're better able to figure out, what's going on with this person? How can I help them? How can I give them a lift, either personal or professional? And because of that, a lot of times when people think about the great connectors they know, they say that person is really good. And they'll point to an introvert because that introvert has taken the time to truly listen to them and figure out how they can be of assistance to that person. So I would say, don't be bashful about doing
Mm.
relationship building if you're an introvert. Lean into that superpower. Go out there and have those conversations with a full realization that what you're providing in a conversation is something that a lot of people can't provide because they're extroverts and
Oh,
they're
yeah.
not good at asking questions and they're not good at listening and they're not good at following through on people's needs. So, what we talk about in our book, I actually think introverts can benefit more in some cases than extroverts because they've got that added layer of depth.
Right. Oh my gosh, I love it. And do you feel like all the actions in here, because every single day ends with an action, do you feel like it's realistic for everyone to be able to do these actions? Or how did you pick the topic, but also when you write these actions, like, did you have everyone in mind? Or tell us about when people get your book, is this realistic that every day we could do something?
Every day you could at least think about something. We
Okay.
don't we don't believe that every day someone's going to start doing an action that they'll continue to do for 366 days.
Hmm.
Our idea is they're going to read the idea, the strategy, the science behind it, and they're going to then say, okay, well, that's something I really should be working on. And maybe that day they'll try it and they'll get some value out of it. And they're going to say, I'm going to do this on a more regular basis. There might be a day where they're already pretty good at it and they're going to say, you know what, I'm doing pretty good at this, but this kind of makes me feel good that this is an important thing. Some ideas will not work, but a page takes about 2 minutes to read.
Yep.
And if you spend just 5 minutes a day thinking about it and maybe acting on one of those pieces of advice, like writing a personal card or doing something
Mhm.
very specific, you would get that feedback that then would empower you to keep doing that. So our hope is that this book is sort of like a mine. There's a lot of
Yep.
nuggets in there, lots of pieces of gold. But there's pieces of silver and pieces of platinum, and maybe someone just wants to mine gold, and that's great. There's a lot of
Right.
gold, and if they want to mine platinum, there's a lot of platinum there too. And it's really
Mhm.
designed so that people are going to come away with this much greater repertoire of things that they can be doing on the relationship building front.
Okay, good. And I love this is coming out in November. And I know that a lot of people love to start the new year, with like, hey, this is going to be a new year, new me about what I can do every day. So it would be fun, to start January 1st, but really we can start this book at any time. So tell the listeners first, this, how do they get this? Because this is coming out in November. But then also, once they get it, what's your strategy of actually doing this?
Well, it's written as January 1st or day one is the first page. So we know that people will be getting this mid-year. So
Love it.
today is the first day of the rest of your life. Isn't that the trite truism that we all hear so often? But it's really true. I mean, you can start getting better at anything. Don't leave it to a New Year's resolution. Maybe
Right.
it should be your June 16th resolution for the following 365 days. So really pick it up when you're ready. We wrote the book really with these two overarching thoughts. One of them is relationship building as a mindset and
Yep.
relationship building as a skill set. So part of the
Mhm.
book, we're talking about the mindset. You've got to commit to it. You've got to understand why it's important. Then there's these connection ideas of how you can go out there and build those relationships. And then the third major category is cultivation. So once you have these relationships, how do you keep them going strong?
Mhm.
So it's not complicated. There's no, if
Mhm.
someone gets this book thinking they're going to get some rocket science, they're going to be disappointed. There's no rocket science. It is simple, simple stuff that is very doable, applicable, and I think people will see immediate results when they start doing these things.
Right. Well, and you and I have talked about it because you and I have a theme that what we write, it's not rocket science, but what it is it's what a lot of people don't take the time to do, and it doesn't take that much time. So when you wrote this, what would you say the amount of time it would take someone to do one of your, I mean, I know that all the actions are going to be a little bit different, but like, what's the time commitment here? And what do you think to get people to think about the return on their investment?
Well, about 10 minutes a day would
Okay.
be all you would have to really focus on it. There's going to be an audio version of this. So we're coming out with the Daily Connector journal. So when you get the audiobook, the journal will be packaged with the audiobook and you can download it, print it out, and actually there's a very specific question in the journal to think about. So if someone were to devote 10 minutes, if let's say you do your morning meditation, you do a 10-minute meditation,
Yep.
and then you do a 10-minute reflection on relationship building, which involves reading something that takes about 90 seconds to 2 minutes, to thinking
Mhm.
about it, maybe writing down a few ideas of intention of what you're going to do that day. And then during the course of the day, putting them into practice is usually just kind of an add-on to
Right.
the activities you're already engaged in. So it's not really putting more time on your calendar. It's just going into that conversation, going into that meeting with an idea of, hey, here's a new thing I might try with this person.
Hmm. Good. I love that. And also, I love that you also, talking about my book, It's Personal, you are the king and also Ellen's a queen of building relationships. Just that you took time to write something in my book. This is not the first time that you've written me something, but I love that you live this. So that truly is your brand, but you're so authentic in how you actually do this. And anyone who's not connected with Patrick on LinkedIn, please connect with him and you will watch him in action. Really take time and build relationships on social media, but I know you do this other ways. You're very active in the Rotary, so you live what you do, which is also very refreshing.
Well, Allison, coming from you, that means a lot because everything you just said about me, I could mirror back on you. You're a fantastic relationship builder. I consider myself super lucky to be in a mastermind with you, to have been connected to you with the past 15 years, because I've learned a lot about relationship building through watching you in action.
Oh, well, thank you. So in closing, I will say that my first book that I wrote was, what will they say, 30 funerals in 60 days. And as you were talking, what I learned in this book is that at the end of our life, this is what people remember. They remember the relationships that we built. They remember the connections, what we did for others. And so what would be your final piece of advice to someone that they could start doing right now? So before, because we have to wait until, November to get your book, but what would you tell them to do right now that would help us start to make connections?
Think about the people who you know, and think about someone you know who might be struggling right now.
Mm,
And maybe it's something you've seen posted on social media, some issue that they're facing, or maybe you've just heard it through the grapevine, or maybe they've told you.
mhm.
And reach out to that person and just say, hey, I know that these are tough times. What is it that I can do to help? I'm thinking about you.
Mm,
I don't have the words to really share in terms of how bad I feel or how tough I can't, I haven't been through that experience, but what can I do to help you out? And then just
mhm,
do that, because
mm,
relationship building really is about serving others. And
mm,
don't assume you can serve others, just ask. And it starts with a
mhm.
person. Reach out to someone who needs that connection. You know they need the connection. Just take the time, do that, make a difference in their life. And it's such a when people have done that for me in times of crisis, it's meant a lot. It's going to mean a lot to that
Mm.
person. So yeah, just go out there and give.
I love that. And that also is a reminder to become more aware of others and get the focus sometimes off ourselves and really start to look out and how we can help other people. Patrick, if people want to find you, I know that I told them how to find you on LinkedIn, but what's another way to connect with you?
They can go to patrickgalvin.com and
Okay.
all my contact info is there.
Okay, great. Well, thank you so much for being on the show. I cannot wait for other people to get your tool because it's actionable, it's inspiring, and it is going to change the way we think as well as connecting with people. So thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Allison. Love talking to you.